Good evening, everyone. I trust we're all doing well. Hopefully you can all hear me, the volumes are good, and all of that good stuff. So this afternoon I've been working on something completely that I wasn't planning on working on anytime soon, but I splurged and spent 30 quid on a little MIDI keyboard to see whether or not I could hook it up to the piano. And lo and behold, it works. It's only a little 32 key thing, so I need to adjust the octave button to go down the range, but it works. Which is surprising that it just worked first time. Things never just work first time, but it did, so yay. I've just caused Unreal to freak out. It does not like you moving tabs around when the game is running. So yeah, it's working, which is nice. I can't play the piano, full disclosure. I learned how to play the Peppa Pig theme about half an hour ago. That's probably the extent of my musical talents. I'm not sure if Peppa Pig's even a thing in the US. It's like a British cartoon. What else can I do? Interstellar, maybe? Yeah, so there we go. And all of that is coming from a tiny little KeyStation Mini 32. So What I've done is I have simply mapped 0 to 72 on the MIDI input to the 72 keys on the piano. So if I go down all the way down the octaves on my little mini keyboard, then that would be MIDI signal 0, and then up through the octaves like that with the same key. I don't know how this is going to play with other MIDI hardware or bigger MIDI keyboards. Literally, it's just, it works, so we'll see. I'll need to get some feedback from other people with other hardware and see whether or not that 0 to 72 mapping works. I've also set it up to be pressure sensitive, so I'm going to gently press the key and then mash the key. So that all works. Again, it's using the velocity of the key press to define the volume. So if you have a MIDI keyboard that doesn't have sensitive key press, I don't know how that will work. Hopefully it will just return a value of 1 and everything's good. Or 100. We'll see. Echo Zeppelin, yes, you can now plug in a MIDI keyboard, and at least for me it's working. We will see whether it works for other people. Anyway, that was just a fun little aside that I did this afternoon, just for a laugh. We've had quite a few people requesting that, so it was nice to implement it and get it working first time. No, you can't use your computer keyboard to play. Not yet, anyway. We can probably do something to make that work. But yeah, for now it's just point and click with the mouse if you don't have a MIDI keyboard. Yeah, I'd love to hear from people how well it goes on the next dev build. So yeah, do let me know if it works. I think my biggest concern is that the key mappings won't align. So as long as the MIDI device outputs 0 to 72 for the keys, and it has a volume or a velocity range of 0 to 125 in the case of this one, then it should be good. What else have I been up to? I fixed a bunch of stuff over here. So if we look at the sensors, you can see that the duplication bug has been fixed, so that's no longer an issue. What else did I fix? I fixed a few things on the sensors. Oh yeah, the display range as well. So you can see right now we've got 1200 targets in range. If we take that down to just 5 light years, it now correctly says 2 and only lists those particular ones. So the listing is now working properly. As I said, it's no longer duplicating, so that's good. And this should be accurate now as well. What else? Yeah, so the stellar data, we've been working on that as well. So we're going for a 2000 light year radius, which right now in the data is 17 million real stars. Those 17 million are the ones that we can get an accurate Kelvin temperature for. For anything that we can't, we haven't included that in the data, because ultimately there's no point, because we can't just make it up. And we will backfill sectors where there isn't enough stars in the real data to fully populate a sector. And in the database there is 7,250 sectors, I believe, that is fully populated. Let's have a quick look. Yeah, just pianos. Yeah, the auto update on the sensors isn't hooked up to anything yet. But when that is hooked up, then when you're flying along, it won't update as you're flying. Just to save a bit of performance. Somewhere here I had Sgr A light browser. One, and moved the database so it can't find it. That doesn't help. Right, so here's our sector data. So see the 7,574 sectors. Not all of those have a lot of data. So if we take a look, as you can see, most of this comes from Gaia. So the position of Sol in the galaxy is now different to what it was before. And off the top of my head, I think it was... So it's going to be x negative 266. It's going to move again though, because we had the data on, I believe, Simbad doesn't have Z as the up axis, so the coordinates are a little bit different. So we've had to do some math on that to kind of convert it. But generally speaking, the new position of Sol in the galaxy is going to be minus 266.69, I believe, with a Y of 0 and a Z of 55.8. And that 55.8 is essentially 17.1 parsecs, which is kind of the commonly accepted height above the galactic plane for our star system. I'm not sure what you mean, Mike. We do have a piano, and it now does work with MIDI. Is that what you mean? Because that's what I just did. But yes, anyway, so you can see that this one's got 3,000 rows, and if we go kind of vertical of the galactic plane, there's only 346 here. So there's a lot of data, a lot of stars. Given that we've gone out for a 2,000 light year radius, every star that makes up any of the known constellations should be included in the data. Pretty sure that encapsulates all of them. If there are any stars that are required for known constellations and they're not in the data, then we'll probably just go through and add those manually. Just to make sure that all the known constellations are catered for when you're at Sol. Because, ultimately, I want to look up and see Orion. Yeah, so it's kind of an ongoing job, this one. One of our Discord members, Udai, has been extracting all the data, and it takes him like all night for the data to process. So he's been putting loads and loads of hours into this to get it done, which is really awesome of him. So yeah, thanks to him, we'll have a massive amount of stellar population for real world stars. Silux, yes. So we don't know yet what sort of population density within a star system the game's going to smoothly handle. Technically, there shouldn't be much of an upper limit. Generally, things won't be drawing and doing anything until you're near them, so we could potentially have every known sole object catered for, if we have that data. So we'll give it a try and see. But yeah, because of the sheer amount of data, we've gone for an SQLite solution. The way it's going to work is, and I might have a go at this later, I might not, we'll see how we go, but we have a new naming structure for the sectors. So that's X negative. It doesn't like having the minus symbol in the table name, so we're just using N for negative, P for positive. So that's negative 266, positive 8, positive 15. So what we'll do is we'll check to see whether this table exists in the data, and if it does, we'll extract all the stars from that table, populate the sector, backfill with procedural stars as needed, and then move on to the next sector. So in theory, that's how it's going to work. We just need to build that system and see how it goes. It seems to be negligible in terms of read speed. Most things, most queries that I've tested it with complete in less than a millisecond, so I don't think we're going to have any issues with speed. In terms of install size, 17 million stars weighs in at about 1.5 gig, which I think is decent enough. If we were looking at the full Gaia dataset, you're talking terabytes. So I think we can accept 1.5 gigs worth of stellar data. Yeah, so that's something else that we've been fiddling with over the past couple of days. It's been one of those weeks where I've been doing little bits of everything, so it doesn't feel like I've made huge amounts of progress, but lots of little things here and there. Right, so what I was doing before I got waylaid with setting up a MIDI controller is I was just going through and further improving how the data is streamlined through the sensor panel, and also setting things up like the manual location for the long range, most of which should now actually have proper buttons, as so, and also really refining the way that the data flow happens. So when you press the button, we go off to the host blueprint that hosts the widget. That then sends that button press off to the player controller to be replicated, because widget panels don't replicate. That then sets a rep notify variable, which in turn fires this event. So the reason we're doing it that way is so that any new joiners immediately get the most relevant information, the most up-to-date information. We then set that variable back on the UMG, and we're doing it from the replication rather than from the button press, because that's just a better way round of doing it. And then once that data has been set, we then deal with that accordingly. So that seems to be the most efficient way of handling all the data throughput, because the sensors panel has a lot of data firing back and forth, and it's kind of growing exponentially the more things we add. So I keep having to go back and refine it and kind of smooth it all off a little bit. But so far so good. I mean, before there was a huge amount of stuff going on here, and I've kind of condensed it to this. And even these are pretty straightforward. There's not a lot going on, so definitely more efficient. And similar here. Again, I've never bothered with using collapsed graphs before. I've just kind of gone the full hog and just done it all in the event graph. But it certainly helps keep things nice and organized. So the next thing I was actually doing, I was setting up the focus focus switch for the long range sensors. So that is, where are we? This one. Yeah, so the data readout right now is literally one giant text box, and that needs splitting up into separate boxes. So the data that gets displayed here is huge and has some crazy font size. Yeah, it's this one. As you can see, it's got a crazy font. So that smaller just straight away, just for the time being. But yeah, so rather than having just a giant wall of text here, this needs to be split up into separate data layers, especially when it comes to the stars themselves, because we need things like spectral information for stars, and I want to do that as a PNG. So we'll have like a rainbow spectrum image here with lines on it kind of showing the metallicity of the star and that sort of thing. Yeah, so we'll get to that. Might get to that tonight, actually. Right, so what I was doing is making sure that these were named properly, which they are. One, which is. So essentially, we just need to duplicate the functionality of the other button. So the things that we were doing here, we now need to do here as well. So one of these is redundant and can go. Which is probably that one. So let's just park that out of the way for a minute. Take a copy of this. We just need to sort these ones out. So that's that one, and then that one. And then that one. Right, so that should be the button hooked up at least. Okay, so that's obviously not hooked up somewhere. So what I was just doing is hooking up this thing so it changes, which it isn't. So let's follow the breadcrumb trail and see where it's failing. Right, okay. so long range focus toggle, which will be in here. We haven't actually set it up there, so that would be why. Take this opportunity to make the thing consistent. Nick, no, it doesn't have to be. Unreal uses C++. I just, in fact, here's some here. So you can either do it in C++ or in Blueprints. What I generally do is I will prototype everything in Blueprints, and once it's polished and functioning nicely in Blueprints, then we can look at converting that to C++ for performance and optimization. Blueprints are really good for rapid prototyping. So we need a copy of that. And we need to rename that one. Generally speaking, it's anything that's CPU bound. So if you have a tick function or just a looping function, then anything that's real time generally performs badly on Blueprints. So if you're doing anything that ticks or loops or anything like that, you're better off doing that in C++. Now, as it happens, the game isn't at all CPU bound. In fact, our CPU usage is really, really low. So I would say probably one of the biggest things, or the two biggest things that will be heavily optimized will be the Galaxy gen. Right now we have hitching when the sectors generate, and hopefully we can completely eliminate hitching with C++ and make it really, really smooth. And that will also allow us to move more quickly through the galaxy as well. The quicker we can generate the sectors, the more quickly the ship can move. So we'll see what we can do with that. And also on the electrical side of things, right now the electrical system is an event-driven system rather than like a pulsing real-time system. And I'd much rather it was a pulsing real-time system like the way Redstone works in Minecraft, rather than being event-driven. The event-driven approach is a lot more efficient, but you have to jump through some loops and do a bit more coding around the fact it's not running in real time. So making the electrical system fully real time is something that C++ will give us. Yeah, it's I started off doing Blueprints before having to do anything in C++. I did C++ at college, but that was like 30 years ago. No, 25 years ago. So it's been a long time since I looked at C++. Prior to working in game dev, I was a web developer, so I spent all day working with PHP. So going from PHP and JavaScript and then moving into Unreal Engine, which is all C++ based, it was quite a big focus change, a big step up. But blueprints, make the transition really easy. Right, so we want to rep notify that, and we want to steal that code there, and pop it in there. Yeah, well, the web side of things, because the website is going to be a fairly big part of the game in terms of back-end services. So all of the back-end infrastructure needs to be solid. So we need to get a developer to actually build all the back-end systems, and then potentially someone on staff to just manage it all day, every day. Did I call that function? Okay. Long range focal point. There we go. Okay, so we're broadcasting out our sensor data. Speaking of which, so that needs adding in there. So what we're doing with this is, every time the sensors update any of the main back-end variables, things like the ranges and the display focuses, these are the sorts of things that are used by other bridge stations and other things around the ship. So like the holo display needs to know what the range is. The helm needs to know what's targeted. So all of those things are broadcast out every time they update. So we just need to make sure that that's all hooked up. Should result in a working button, so let's find out. Cyando Media, sorry, I missed your question. Is a new tech demo coming anytime soon? Yeah, essentially, as soon as all this is done. So the tech demo, the public tech demo, is waiting on two things. One is this sensors panel being feature complete. The GPS side of it is now feature complete, so that's good. The long range should be feature complete pretty soon. Medium range still has some work that needs doing to it. Hopefully it won't take too much longer. The more that these two are fleshed out, the more I can copy paste for this one, so it should speed up. Really, the longest thing with this particular thing is the short range, because it's all about short range scans, planetary scanning, and generating life data for planetary surfaces. Only in text form for now, but it's still a fairly big chunk of data that we need to generate. So there's all of that which needs doing, and as Dave Soft has just pointed out, not the finished outer hull, but certainly more than there is here. If we take a quick look outside, you can see that we're missing half a ship. So we'll get the front and the back of the ship modelled in at least to the point of being airtight. We'll probably cut some window holes and just do the rough shape, and that will be enough for the next demo update. And then we can work on adding all the hull paneling and everything later. I forgot to test the one thing I wanted to test. B-class stars are already in the tech demo. So the public tech demo includes classes OBA, F, G, K, M. O class you'll only find in open clusters. So if you look around and you see a blue nebula on the horizon, that'll be where the O class stars are currently hiding. There's plenty of them. It's still not working. Why is it still not working? Yeah, if you're not seeing them, then that sounds like a bug. They should definitely be there. Yeah, that's how I remember it too. Right, so we press the button, and let's make sure that we're just grabbing the right button. So we press the button, it fires that event. We fire this button ID from here to player controller. It then comes back from the player controller, and on here we are doing a switch on string, and that is the string we're switching on. I shall just pop it in again just to be sure. We then set with notify focal point long range. Oh, yeah. That doesn't help, does it? Plugged into the wrong pin. That might very well be our issue. Hang on. Should be the same as this one. So 1 and 0. That's probably what it was. I had that pinned in there. I'll just keep following it through just to be sure. So we set our variable, we broadcast that data out for anyone that's interested, and then we then fire this event here, which sets the variable here, which shows and hides everything and renames the label. So end to end, that looks fine. Yeah, the scanning and nav tutorial is going to need a complete rewrite. I say complete rewrite, mostly a complete rewrite, because all of the buttons are at the very least in a different place. And there's a few extra bits and pieces on there that need to be explained. What I might actually do is remove the need for the player to actually get up out of the sensor's chair for the tutorial. So have the whole tutorial take place here, and then Ava can just take over the ship, so you don't actually have to go and press any buttons over there. That's a good question. How much progress has been made? It depends on what you're looking at, I suppose. Yeah, it's we're putting out dev builds twice a week. But yeah, loads and loads. There we go. That's better. Long-range scanners go out to 150 light years now. You notice that it's it's not drawing M-class stars beyond 50 light years, and that's on purpose because there's hundreds of them, and it would lag like crazy. Talking of new things, you couldn't do this before. It's one of my favourite things that's been added. And similar on the medium range as well. You can now zoom in and out of star systems arbitrarily, and they have actual temperature regions now, which need tweaking. Well, it's not the temperature regions themselves that need tweaking. It's it's actually the code that generates them, because it's putting Earth right at the edge of the habitable zone. Really, it should be more towards the centre, and Venus should be like skirting the habitable zone as well. So you just need to have a look at the math for that and make sure it's actually generating properly. Yeah, there's going to be dozens and dozens of tutorials. The tutorial system is going to be split per in-game role. So every role aboard the ship is going to have its own selection of tutorials. So yeah, lots. Francesco, yeah, I think if you're running on the most recent dev builds, then that doesn't have the fixes that I made yesterday or the day before. So this now properly reduces the number of targets as you zoom out. See, we're down to 2. Yeah, once we've got an NPC crew on the bridge, and that will be something that's added fairly soon. I'll probably do that the patch after the next one. So this current patch is all about planetary scanning and sensors and things. The next patch after that is going to be about sublight flight, being able to collide with things, adding wormholes to the game, and various other things around that, like control support. The next update after that, I'm going to focus on adding an actual bridge crew, so you can command NPCs and have a more fleshed out bridge experience. So yeah, so when we get to actually adding people on the bridge, we will take control away from Ava and give it to them instead. Yeah, so there's been lots of updates on the sensors. Being able to switch from manual to where the ship is, being able to focus the galaxy or the ship, zoom accordingly. This is more what I wanted from the sensors. I wanted them to be, detailed and to make it easy to plot a course anywhere in the galaxy, and to understand your position in the galaxy and what that means from an astrophysical sense. Astrophysics sense, rather. Right, so this is working now. Good. So when you select a manual location on here, if we do that now, so if we just give it 12,000 layers, you can see that the manual location is different location of the ship, and that manual location should now also be here on the long range, so that's shared between these two sensor modes. So when we click this, what you see here should now focus on this as the origin point rather than the position of the ship. So that means you can find a juicy looking sector using the GPS, and you can see here an overview of what's in that sector. So if you find something like something with maybe an interesting description here, maybe it's got an interesting number of black holes or anything else you're looking for, it's an open cluster, say, you can then actually explore long range in that sector, target an object of interest, and then plot a course from here, which means you can plot a course to any star across the whole galactic space, which is a much nicer way of getting around. Yeah, so let's start working on generating that data, because that's going to be a biggie. Yeah, I wouldn't pay too much attention to what goes on up here. This is just Unreal being Unreal. What you see in the editor is very different to what happens in game. Whilst the game's running, it's constantly garbage collecting and clearing out the memory. So that's good. So the next thing we need to do then is we need to take a copy of that. So I'm just thinking how best to handle this efficiency wise. So when we, oh god, this needs cleaning up. When we generate the list of targets on the sensors, we're very much going off of the sorted list of stars that we get from our galaxy generation, but when we're using the manual location, that's an entirely different set of data. So I'm thinking it's probably best that we do just handle that separately, so we don't mess with that macro when we make another one. So if we do, so it's list sector locations. Let's not rename that. Yeah, let's do name. Let's do rename it. So let's set to location ship. And then oh, it's done the thing. So one of these tabs is kind of stuck. But which one? Right then. So here we need to get manual data. I'm thinking we'll just go for the sector. Yeah, we'll go for the sector that it's actually in. I'm just wondering, out loud as I tend to do, whether or not it would be confusing if this was a sector ID rather than galactic ones per se. Because if it was a sector ID, that means we can just get a single sector from our data pool rather than a 3x3 grid. 3x3 grid, which is 27 sectors, which is a lot of data generation. Or we just focus that anyway. I'm gonna start off just getting a single sector, and then we will see. Do I have a reference to game state already that I can steal? Okay then, so if we cast to Starship game state, gets single. That's the one. I thought I renamed that single sector, but no, that's the one I wanted. Right, so this isn't going to be data only, so we need the full list of sector locations. Let's get some room for it. Right, so I was going to start storing that in there. So that will get us our data. However, not yet, because I don't think it's actually populating that yet. This is going to be This is the other complication. Does this need to be a sorted or unsorted list? Because I think it can basically be unsorted, although then it's the ordering is going to be the order in which the stars were generated. Make sure we're adding all the real world stars to the data as well. That should be fine. Oh, actually. I won't put that there. Hide that behind here for now. So if data only is false, then we do want to data. We're not doing any of the backfilling of the sector yet, so that can just stay unconnected. Okay. So I'm thinking of several things at once at the moment, because we're about to generate a whole massive chunk of data, and that needs to be transferred across to the sensors in as a pain-free way as possible. We don't want it to lag the game. So what I'd like to avoid doing is sorting this data if we can get away with it. It's not a huge amount because it is just a single sector, but it is there's a big old chunk of data anyway to sort. So for our coordinates, then we need our manual coordinates. So it'll automatically convert this to the right sector ID. So we've got no issues there. And then from this point on, it will work as before. Okay. So on here, we need two outputs here rather than one. So 0 would be ship, and 1 would be manual. Let me go ahead and spell that properly. Exec. Completely off on a tangent, and I don't know if anyone else has ever noticed this, but I learned this like 2 days ago. If you're making a macro or a collapsed blueprint graph, then normally speaking, it'll be a labeled input, especially on macros. It'll probably say something like in or something. If you just type execute, it gets rid of it, and it's just a pin. Never knew you could do that. You learn something every day. It's a silly thing, but I like silly things. So what should be happening here is we manage the arrows and the button and the display and everything. And then either we're listing stars near the ship, or we're listing the sector that we've just manually targeted. We're going to have to do something with the holo display to make it do that, because the holo display is going to need that data too. I'll look at that in a minute. Let's give that a try a minute, see whether it actually does generate the stars, because that would be a good first step. Well done, William. Should I just randomly bring up spreadsheets as well, just to make it look like you're busy? Let's can't change that there yet. So if we set a location there, which is what I usually use, so that's our manual location. It should have 554 stars. Yep. So does this list 554 stars? No. Of course it doesn't. Is it generating this again? Okay. Right, hang on. We will not admit defeat. So this bit's all fine. Yeah. Okay, good. I suspect I've completely, look at that. I've completely ignored the fact that running off of a different array. Right, so I need to do I need to replicate this? Do I? That's the question. I probably should, to be honest, but let's go without for now. Don't really want to be replicating all that data. So this one. Let's just call that manual set to locations. And then we'll go ahead and set that over here. The reason we're storing it as a variable rather than just referencing it is because otherwise it would do this. Every time you query this pin, it will redo the generating of the data, whereas if you store it in a variable, then it just has to access the variable. It just helps to keep it nice and optimized. Alright, so I just delete that. So that should be the only time that's actually used. Generate the data once, store it, access it multiple times. All good. So one interesting thing I noticed it was doing is it doesn't update the range display like straight away. Is that because it's set to some crazy value? Yeah, that'll be why. Let's set that to 20. Hopefully that'll default to 20 light years when we click on it. Yeah, it'd be nice to have a sim that was so accurate that you need a literal PhD to play. Gets my vote. So technically, that should be the same data. Location's the same, so it should be the same. That is the Sol sector, so give it the benefit of the doubt. So manual location is there. We don't want that many. So much less. Do we generate data? Yes, we do. And that was instant. Sol sector, custom sector, Sol sector, custom sector. Great. And it says 544, which matches that 544. Great. Didn't remember which mode we were on. Went straight back to Sol, so I just need to make sure that we do a mode check when switching modes, so we don't have to re-click that. So the thing that was concerning me with this is that obviously all the stars are going to be generated in order because that's the order that they're generated by the Galaxy Gen. So instead, we need to order them in some way. I suppose the best and most efficient way of doing that will be to do it by way of perhaps the center of the sector. Yeah, it's probably the most efficient way of doing it. Which then, again, kind of really pushes this towards being more the sector ID rather than an actual galactic position. So maybe we can manage that in some other way. But we have data, so that's a good thing. Let's check if it actually works. So we know where we are. So if we clear that, and we just go one sector over. Okay. Of course, it's not one sector over, is it? It's light year. We want to go 150. That should take us into the next sector. 252. Yeah. So we've got 4,000 targets in this sector. So you can see there was a bit of a hitch. And that's because it's generating 4,000 objects all at once, which is always fun. Right, so if we target that... In fact, no, I won't do the black hole, because I want to... actually want to go to a planet. So if we send that to the helm. Okay. I need to fix the target highlight because I set it so it disappears if it's too far from the middle here. So that was a bit of a no goal. Okay, so the distance looks good, and you can't see a star in the sky, so that's good too. I would say that's working. So we will cheat our way over. Okay, so generated all the stars and stuff. That looks good. Are we actually parked next to a planet is the question. Guessing that's a no. Interesting. So we're definitely in the right sector. Yes, that's very much the plan. Not only will those highlight in the list, the sensor target icon will appear on here. It used to, and it does in the demo, but it's not hooked up right now. There's definitely a star there. Seem to be heading towards an actual star, so that's promising. Yeah, I shall try another one and see. Yeah, gravity's not actually a thing yet. Yes, the answer to that question is magic. They are magic space labels, and they just happen to orient. So, right, so we definitely have a plan here. If you really want to be confused by them, they also orientate to different people. So they orientate to two people at once. Right, so this is a B-class star, and it is properly detecting that there is a gas dwarf around that B-class star. I can see the B-class star, so the question is there a B-class star? Yes, there is. Yeah, the orbits will be on rails, definitely. But they won't be hard rails. I don't know how to describe them. Soft rails. So if you don't touch the controls and you have no impulse from any of the engines, then you will continue to just drift along the rail. If you apply any impulse to the ship, then it'll recalculate the rail based on your altitude. I'm going to go to another sector. So this is the third sector along. There's lots of B-class stars. So we shall pick one at random. Just making sure that that is definitely consistent with that. So 25839, 282 minus 7. 25839, 252 minus 7. So it's definitely picking up the right coordinates. Definitely a star here this time. It's pretty. Yeah, I'm going to have to just run some tests on that, I think. But yeah, that's definitely a B-class star, and we definitely accessed that from outside of the sector we were in. Let's try one that's further afield. So if we go to completely the other side of the galaxy, ourselves in there. That's in it. It's a good chunk of objects. So this should be the same. Okay, so same again. Let's just go to the star this time, shall we? let's not do that because we'll appear inside of it. Right, so this is going to take us literally right to the other side of the galaxy. Coordinates look good. Let's have a look. Yep, there's a planet. Assume, because it's all lit up, there is a star. There it is. Yeah, it could very well be. I'll do some thorough testing on it, and we'll find out what's going on with that. It seems to be working. We were able to jump across the whole galaxy without any issues. I'll be completely redoing the real stellar data when I get the next push on the database, so it might just resolve itself. I need to update this actually, that should be over there. Actually, so what should happen now is when I press this, we should see the ship over there. Ah, phew. When I press this, it should center on it, which it does. It's nice when things just work. Right, so that is working. So there were a couple of things I noticed it was doing, which are easy to fix. So the first one was GPS mode switching. So when we switch the mode, we are obviously having to draw a list of targets. So we need to make sure that we do a switch on there. Because obviously what it's doing is it's picking the wrong one. That should solve that problem. So we're just making sure that when we switch between the different sensor modes, it properly selects whether or not we're currently looking at manual location or not. Is that referenced anywhere else? There. Same thing here as well. So we'll just copy that one for simplicity's sake. Where else? Yeah, there we know about. That's the macro itself. And are we even doing anything here? Oh right, yeah, that's the filter button. So we'll require that. I might go ahead and make the filter button work before I put all this onto the holo display. So that should take care of all the different variables. check. Hey Mike, yeah, that's right. So the captain tier gives you access to the bi-weekly development builds. And what I've started doing is I've started doing the builds after the stream. So before we were doing it every Friday, and now it just seems to make more sense. I'll do the stream, I'll work on some stuff, and I'll put a build out just immediately after the stream, usually about half an hour or so, to get all the notes and things written up. It just gives people the ability to experience what I've literally just been working on. Can't get hotter off the press than that. So, manual location. I need to work out why that's not working for the Soul sector. Let's give ourselves a different place to go to. That'll do. So if I change between modes, it's still that one. Okay, that's interesting. Hey Jim, good to have you on the stream. The recent joiners, what we're doing is we're just adding the ability to bring up the data from a remote sector in the galaxy. So you can see here, we move our target indicator around on the galactic disk. Now that we have this manual location on our long-range sensors, what you see here is from that location and not where the ship is. So near the ship we have these stars, and in our manual location we have these stars. It's not reflected up there yet. This gives you the ability to target and scan any star across the whole galactic disk and beyond, and navigate to those objects directly. Means, actually, if I clear that and clear that, it should give us Sgr A, but it's not going to, is it? Because it's not showing custom sector data, so let's just fix that. I think the best and easiest way to look at that, how long this is taking, is just like one step at a time. I like the philosophy of no 0 days. So as long as I make some progress every single day, then there is a non-finite time or a non-infinite time that it's going to get finished. So just something progressed every single day, it'll get finished. That's the way I like to look at it. Oh, I see what's happening. Right, this is me being a Marone. If I put that down there, what I'm doing is I'm adding the sector locations before we've generated the database version of them, and indeed the manually crafted ones. However, there does need to be a branch in there so that we're only doing it if data only is false, which means I need to drag a long ass pin all the way down there. That's temporary. That is not staying like that. In fact, even though it's temporary, I can't bear looking at it, so I'm going to do this. It's marginally better. Right, and the same thing needs doing on the Sgr A sector. Yeah, because that is also a separate one. So we do that, we do that, we do that, and actually this one's slightly different again. So that actually needs to go in there. Hooking up that properly. We don't even have that's a variable yet. So there we go. That sorts that out. That needs to go there. Pin is that. That's that one. So you go down to there. And you go down to there. Right. So if data only is false, only give the numbers, otherwise generate everything. Nasi, we're about halfway through, I reckon. So the GPS is working pretty much every way it should be. The long range is almost there now. Yeah, no, to be honest, it's just a short range that's going to take another couple of weeks, I think. Everything else is pretty much straightforward. Thingder, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Yeah, I think 3 weeks is probably a realistic figure. The whole 2 more weeks thing has become a meme now. But yeah, I think that's probably realistic. Right, so why? Oh, God, I'm such an idiot. So where else have I got that wrong? Yes, that one's fine. Not fine. Okay. Right, so that should be 2 things fixed now. The switching of the modes shouldn't flip the data back the wrong way. And we should now see custom data in manually crafted sectors. You're welcome, William. Drive safely. Say hi to your grandson for me. I have no idea who I am, but hey. Hey, it's the thought that counts. Right. So there's our sector, and yeah, it's still consistent, so that's that fixed. And the other thing we had to fix was if we clear out what's there, that takes us to the Galactic core, which for some reason doesn't have a description. I'll need to fix that. It should be generating data. Why is it not? That's the question. Okay. Oh, it's trying to, because as much as we're zooming on the Sol sector here, the amount of lag would suggest that we're definitely querying that sector, because that's got an absolute bucket load of stars. Although interestingly, it's not showing any. Okay. Does that mean the Sol sector's not showing any either? Oops. It's too far. 0%. That one is, so. That's interesting. It's actually generating procedural data for Sol, because obviously there's no two black holes there. Right, and I know why. It's because we're generating the class populations for the data before we're actually generating the stars. Now in a procedural sector that's fine, because that's telling us how many stars we're generating. But of course in the Sol sector we're ignoring that. We're not actually generating procedural stars, so these numbers that it gives you are completely irrelevant. My volume is being aggressive. Is that any better? Hello, hello, testing, testing. Okie doke. Okay. Okay, yeah. It might have been, as you say, I was shifting around in my chair. This microphone doesn't like it if I'm not pointing at it. Or if I slouch. I've actually clamped my chair so I can't slouch while streaming. Streams force me to have good posture. sector locations to where they should be going. So yes, and yes. We're definitely outputting that. Which we're definitely updating there. Definitely giving it the sector locations, which we're definitely updating there. So that data should very much be available. So that is going to be wrong. But not wrong so much that it won't select the data here. What I might do actually is work out the sector ID first, then calculate the sector midpoint. Because when we're generating a single sector, generally speaking, we're just throwing some galactic coordinates at it. We're not actually checking that that's the middle of the sector. Not that it should matter. Though, that having been said, it does use this to measure the distance to the stars and also to distribute them around this central point. So yeah, if we're generating actual data, then that does need to be accurate. So to calculate the sector midpoint. No, I didn't bother doing that anymore. Alright, so what I'll do instead then, we will take a copy of that. So that's no good there. So we're going to calculate our galactic coordinates normally. That's fine. That gets used over there. That's where we want it. And you can go there like that. And then we need a macro or something there to sort that out. Cloud, don't worry. So if we take our calculate sector ID macro, I already have that one. Just see whether we're actually using it anymore. So if we're not, I shall repurpose it. So I don't fact, rather conveniently, I think that already does exactly what we need it to do. Because what normally happens when we're generating sectors is we generate our midpoint, we find our midpoint, like this. So essentially we divide it by 100 and then round the result for the most part, unless it's one of the central sectors, in which case we divide by 50 instead. That gives us the exact midpoint of our sector, and then we can offset all the other sectors from there just by adding 100. Which is nice and simple. But when we're generating a single sector, none of this is happening because we're just throwing some coordinates at it. So in that instance, we actually need to do that task here instead. So that should solve at least one of the predicaments. But I don't think that was the problem, it was just a problem. So now we need to find the problem. That's definitely right, because we want to. What we're checking is if we're not generating just the basic data, and we want the star systems as well, then we definitely want that there. Although another point has occurred to me. Really, that needs to be on there. So this. After. I need to start collapsing some of these nodes, because it's getting a bit mad. So if data only is false, we don't want you doing this. If you are doing that, then you can go ahead and do that. Okay, let's make sure that gets done after doing that, so that's good. So that's definitely happening in the right order. So we're not going to do any of the data generation if we're data only. So that's fine, and the same applies here, which we're not hooking up yet on purpose. Yeah, so to my mind, that's exactly as it all should be, which means this should have sector data. Just fix that for the Sgr A sector as well, because you've got a similar issue here. So that's fine. That's fine. That was already set. Okay. Shouldn't have been the midpoint thing that was breaking it, but you never know. Hi Lyosh, haven't seen you on stream for a while. So if it's working, when I press this, it should continue to say this. Okay. That's good. It's good that it's in a different order, because this is the data it's listed in the database. So Sol and Psi 9352 are manually created, and the rest of them come from the database, and that's the order that they're built in. So that is perfect. Must have been the sector midpoint, but I don't know why that was a problem. I won't question it. Yeah, so that's fine. So similarly then, I set that to 0, 0, 0. Not showing any data there, but we'll figure that out afterwards. We should see Sgr A. Why are we not seeing Sgr A? Well, at least it's working for the Sol sector, which means it's something. Could it be this? No, it's not that. Just making sure that the right thing is going into the right hole. Well, that doesn't look right, does it? That's probably also why it's not generating any data. I knew it'd be something silly. Yeah, I'd actually like that to be the case, Mike. I've said a few times that I want it to be the case that you genuinely learn astrophysics and astronomy just by playing the game. And I'd like to think that's already the case. Because the way the data is presented on the sensors and the descriptions that it gives you for the different galactic regions and things. Like, how many people know what an open cluster is? Just, generally. Ask some random person on the street, what's an open cluster? And I'd say 99% of them will just shrug and wonder why you're approaching them on the street. So, having data like this and descriptions and an actual proper structure to the galaxy, and having that structure actually mean something in a realistic way, I think that in itself is educational. Right, here we go. Do we see Sgr A? No. Generating objects, there we go. Right. Alright, what's going on? That can't help. Did I not even get as far as updating this? I don't think I actually did, you know. No, I didn't. Well, that explains a lot. Way to fix this. So take a copy of that. Purge that. Whack that in there. So, in case anyone's wondering why Sgr A and Sol are essentially doing the same thing as separate functions, it's because for the most part, they're just a test, just testing the process. The full system is going to merge these two together into essentially a custom system unified generator. So if custom data exists, then it will use one function. If custom data doesn't exist, then it will use this existing procedural one. So the Sol one in particular, where we've got things like Sol being added manually and like SAL 9352, those ones will be removed from there and added to the actual database. That way it becomes infinitely expandable just by adding new data to the database. Then we don't need a separate function for every single sector, because that would get crazy after a while. And that also takes care of the backer systems as well. So all the systems that are designed by backers will go onto a separate database. And again, if that data exists, then it will generate the handcrafted version of a procedural sector. If that makes sense. Oh, something I forgot to mention actually. Tristan, one of our moderators and also one of our Fleet Admiral backers, he has rather amazingly, because he just seems to have a massive math brain, has made a whole new random stream, which is a vector stream. Make random stream vector, that one. So he's created this, And as you can see from the description there, this creates a absolutely mind-blowing number of unique seeds. So that's either 2 to the power 192, which is a big number if you don't have an affix, and 2 to the power 256 if you do have an affix. And that's just, again, that's just a mind-bogglingly huge number of unique seeds. And what this means for the game is that I can remove all of this and then reform these, because I think that's just random stream structure. Yeah. So I need to redo these variables to match this data type. And that means that where we're still driving the seed from the coordinates of the sector and indeed individual stars, it means because the numbers we're dealing with are so just massively huge, there's going to be no duplication of seeds for a long time, far beyond the perimeter of the galaxy. I'm not sure distance wise what that caters for, but it's a huge number, which does mean that pretty much every single planet in the galaxy can have a unique seed. Not just every star system, but every unique object within a star system has a globally unique seed, which is going to be huge for the game. But I need to change all of these variables and all the references, and some of the helper functions like random bool from stream, they need to be redone as well. So there's going to be a lot of rejigging that's needed to implement this, but it's worth the effort because yeah, it's a 192-bit seed. That's huge. Yeah, it's perfectly performant, which is good. It's instant. Okay, Jim, thanks for joining. Have a good one. Yeah, so huge thanks to Tristan for doing that, because it's that opens the door to just so much more in the game, which is good. So, first of all, we should now see the data here, which we do. That's good. So we've got 14 black holes lingering in the galactic core. It's probably a lot more than that in reality. So that means good, and it also means we should have stuff on here, including Sagittarius A star. So this is good. That means, so that's still wrong. You can now literally plot a course to Sag A from Earth just by using the sensors, without having to know anything, any coordinates in advance, which is good. That needs fixing though, because that's wrong. Okay, so now all of that is working perfectly as expected. One thing you can't do yet, at least I think, the edit panel on here needs all of its functionality essentially duplicating from here. So same thing with the animations and everything. So you need to be able to update the location in either mode and that also needs to change for both of them. So if we edit this one here, it should be reflected here, and vice versa. And then that really takes this whole thing a lot closer to being feature complete. So that doesn't work yet, that needs doing. That should pick a star. It shouldn't be quite so huge now. It's now the opposite problem. But again, this needs separating out into separate data points, and it's going to be presented more nicely, probably with a scroll bar. We want a lot of information on this panel, so it's going to need to scroll. This shouldn't be too difficult to make work. Do need to hook it up to the customization system, so on that note, so it's going to need hooking up. So ideally that could do with just being a coloured graphic. The rest of it seems to be hooked up. These boxes need hooking up as well. I'll do all of the customization stuff. I'll do that as like a final polish. Vast, yeah, you're right. It's I personally, for me, I absolutely despise UI work. I hate it. It's so long-winded, clunky, and laborious, and in no way fun. So yeah, working on UIs is definitely my least favourite thing to do by far. Literally, probably the most least favourite thing. Probably why it takes me so long to make them. Right, so let's sort the filter out. Let's get that working, because that will it's one of them quick wins, hopefully. So we need, first of all, to make it look not quite so ugly. Welcome back, I hope it's working now. Right, so ideally I need to make that a separate thing. I won't do that now, but I've been slowly building up a library of Unos specific panels and things. Each one of them is customization aware in its own right, which makes it easier to just drag it in, and I don't have to worry about customization or any of that because it's already handled. So we kind of need a drop-down list that's a generic one that I can drag into any panel. But it's going to have to take an array as an input for the options, which is why I'll do it at another time. So for now, I will just make this one not quite as awful looking. So we want 220.51 maybe, 0.025 maybe, 0.025. Okay. Outline just 220. Never remember where it picks up the font color from. So if we just set these to white a minute. Let's make that bigger. Is it not white? Ah, here we go. Text color. There it is. Okay. That made literally no difference. Ha, there we go. Liosh, yeah. Those UA5 prefabs are essentially what I've been making for myself. And yeah, they are a lifesaver. We'll keep that as white actually. Just, no, wrong one. Interesting. Why did it not change the font color? Font style. Ah, I see. Because reasons, that's why apparently. If you're using the Star Trek warp scale, then it's warp 9.9999999 and a few more nines. Because Star Trek warp is actually ridiculously slow. If you actually look at the speed, even warp 9.999 is quite slow. Our ship moves at 300 light years per hour. So that's a ridiculously high warp speed. Yeah, hence Voyager taking 70 odd years to get from the Delta Quadrant. We can do that same journey in a week. Not fully happy with the design of this, but it might have to do for now. It's a bit nicer. Ultimately, we need the ability to filter by multiple objects. If we just have a drop down for now, at least it gives us a base point to start from. To select it. Yeah, these particular bits of the sensors are, to be honest, almost done. It's the planetary scanning one, the short range, which is going to take a couple of weeks, because it's not just the sensors themselves that we're building, it's the entire galactic life generation code that we're building. So the sensors is how you see the result of that code, but in the background there's a tremendous amount of galactic code that needs working out, because it's not just here's some random numbers, throw some life in the galaxy. It's actually taking into account the actual characteristics of the worlds themselves. Right then. I think the way I'll do this, obviously this has to go through player controller for replication purposes. What I could do, I could maybe convert those into a unique button code, or I think it would probably be better if we had an additional UNOS function. So we don't have one of these for strings. Which was a better way of just immediately going to the Blueprint interface to add stuff without having to go and dig it out. So, so we'll do the same thing with these then. So, add a new function. We'll call this string. Right, so basically we're going to copy the inputs from these. So we want our ID, we want our new string. So that's an ID, new string. I'm doing this because this is a nice generic way of passing data between the UI elements without needing to make a specific one each time. So rather than having one set up just for dealing with the filter on the Galaxy panel, on the long range panel rather, if we just have a generic blueprint interface for passing strings, then that's usable in many more locations in the code. And then we just have source actor, so we know after we have performed the replication on this, we know where we're sending it back to, essentially. Let's keep that naming convention consistent and the pin location consistent. Should be fine then. So we have to generate an event first because we can't reference the blueprint interface twice on the receiving end. So like here. So just make a normal custom event. And we will call that update. What are we updating? Update target filter. Let's be nice and specific with it. Right, and then we want our string. Button ID as well, just so we can distinguish it in the future if we need to. Right, and then on here, just grab these. Then we do update string. Then we need to implement that event as well. So when the message comes back from player controller, we wanted this one, string. So this just implements that. So we send our ID, so we know what the string relates to, essentially. Spelled that wrong. Okay, so just need to do this on the player controller next, and then we'll get back our replicated string. We decide what to do with that string. So we'll store that as we'll handle it via rep notify, and then we'll do the code in the rep notify. Yeah, that's probably the easiest way to do that. So long range filter. Yeah, the tutorials, or at least the scanning and navigation tutorial, needs a complete rewrite for the current dev build because the UI is completely different to what it was originally written for. Notify. Right, so that handles the first part of that. But we do need to go into our framework. There's our player controller. Like this. So these are all the replicated events that we're passing back and forth between UI panels, and you can see on some of these, like we've got two different interfaces which are both just a simple boolean. That can literally just be a generic boolean that we handle, which means these don't need to be separate things that are handled separately. So that's what I'm working on next. It's just unifying all that sort of stuff. Right, so that's where we'll just add the new one. Let's give these guys a description. This is a text update. Yeah, the historical media library will be an actual function of the screen properly. So when that whole screen has things like the ship roster and any active missions and all that sort of stuff, the historical media archive will just be one of the functions that are available on that screen. So we need a new custom event. This one is a UDOS string update. And that needs running on the server. And so that is running on the server. And it is reliable because it's a button press. I always make sure that button presses are reliable replicated so that pressing things doesn't not happen in multiplayer. Right, and then we need parent blueprints and 2 strings. Right, so the first one is actor reference. Specific here, so that's actually source actor. That is the button ID, which is a string. That is our new string that we're passing through, which is also, of course, a string. Go in there. send our blueprint interface back to where it came from. So this is essentially just handling the replication of that button press, or rather in this case the drop down change. So we send it to the player controller. That is now a server authoritative action, which means because it's server authoritative, it means we now have permission to update the rep notify, thus enabling any client to press any button and it replicates exactly as we want it to. Which means this is now server authoritative and we can do what we want with it. So, that having been said, let's make ourselves a nice chunky comment box. And this is long range target filter. Custom event here. Update long range. My end key suddenly not working. Requires a string as an input. So on here we need to steal that. Also that actually, because yeah, we need this filter to show up on the hollow display. So we definitely want to broadcast that out. So, update long range filter. Thank you, KofiBot, for the random spam, and thank you, Dutch. Very much appreciated. Right, so all those hoops we just jumped through essentially gets our new filter selection all the way through the replication chain to here, and then that passes it through back to here, and now we deal with it. So all of the stuff that we just did was purely for replication. Otherwise, we could have got rid of that and just dealt with it immediately. And that's why you don't add replication to your first game, because it's a nightmare. Alright, so we're going to switch on the string. Then we need to know what we're sending. Alright, so that one, of course, that needs to be update. Target filter, question mark. pretty sure that's the right event. Update long range target filter. Yeah. Right, now we'll go through. Right, so we're passing that string. So essentially that's going to be these strings here. It's a shame it won't just pass the index, because that would be nice. Actually, that said, I'm pretty sure you can get selected index. Yeah, you can actually do that. It's fine. What order did I do this in? Usual ones, blah, blah, blah. Okay. O class does. Can't remember if it's case sensitive. Let's assume it is. Girl. Kiss. Moi. And not to forget the brown dwarfs. Right, then how many more do we have then? So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we have rogue planets. Ooh, where's it gone? I'm going to copy paste these just to rule out any potential cock-ups. Because if I type it out manually, it's bound to happen. Naito 5000, sorry, I missed your question. I wanted to ask, can we have a way to add music to the game and play in certain areas of the ship? At some point, yes, I'm sure that will be possible. I haven't got any facility at the moment for loading files from an external folder. But yes, that's definitely something we want to do. Right then. Hi Pantalonians, great name. I'm currently working on the selection filter for the long-range sensors. We fixed a few issues with the long-range sensors today, and I also added MIDI support for the piano today as well, so anyone with their own external MIDI device can now play the piano remotely. Assuming that works for other MIDI devices other than the £30 keyboard that I purchased to test it on. What am I doing? So let's promote that one to a variable. Are the star systems generated in memory? Yes, they are. So, aside from the star systems which exist in the SQLite database, aside from those ones, they're procedurally generated on the fly as you explore. Now that we have a database with 7,000 odd rows, 7,000 odd tables even, one for each populated sector, you could potentially modify that database and then add things to that database. You could add star systems. All it's going to take, though, is the location and a Kelvin value. It would still do the specifics of that star system procedurally. However, a star system creation tool is coming to the game soon, because that's part of the system for the backer star systems, and that will allow you to create custom star systems for your own local save game. So they won't be star systems that exist for everyone else unless you're hosting a multiplayer game, but at least they'll exist in your personal game. Yes, controller support won't. Well, it might be in the next patch, depending on how much time I have left at the end. If not, it will definitely be in the next one. After that, obviously. Long range filter. So now that I've made this string selector, it might not actually be needed, because when we redraw the sectors, if I can at least find the macro, yeah, there we go. So here we're essentially saying if the star is within the sensor range, then go ahead and add it to the list. Otherwise, do nothing. So what we really need so we need That string. Because we can do the filter right here. Anasi, that's correct. So for the race creator, well, that's half and half true. You'll still be able to create alien races, their lore, all their background, their attributes, and all those things. The only thing we're waiting on for the character creator, designer, is the actual physicalized version of that alien. So those alien races can be in the game already. They just won't have a physical presence, on foot. Again, like with most things, it'll be built in stages. We iterate on these things. Start simple, build up from there. So watch me get all confused with the Boolean logic here. Logic gates, always good fun. Right, so if we're less than or equal to the sensor range, it's true. Or if that I bet you my drop downs don't exactly equal. Yeah, let's do case insensitive. Let's give that a whirl. Yeah, you see, I know for a fact. Because on the drop down it says stars plural, and the location type will be star singular. So I'm going to have to change the drop down to match, but that's fine. Right, so if it's within range, or it matches the filter, or if that equals, we don't exactly do case insensitive, or if that equals show all, let's add another pin to the or boolean. Right, so if any of those return true, no, you see, because that's no good, because then that negates this, doesn't it? So if that is that, and that, then that, right, that should, yeah. One. Right, so if we're within the sensor range, and we have a match on either of those criteria, that gives us a true response, and then we can go and do all the fun things we were going to do. Yeah. Seems logical, quite literally. Right, so already that should be a working filter. And we also need to do the same job over here for this one, because the same problem exists. there. Stick that in there. Stick that in there. Yeah, for manually created systems, definitely. Cloud. It's funny you should say that, but there's an undocumented feature on the new dev build where you can press H on the main menu to hide the menu completely, and it will just randomly show you procedural stars and planets, and black holes and things. Granted, it's not a wallpaper, but as a kind of quasi screensaver, it can just sit there. Just a bit of an Easter egg. Right, so that should be good. There we go. I suppose I shouldn't make it guess. Right, so what we need now, tell you what we need to close some tabs, because my usual tradition of opening every tab in the game is still continuing to be true. Right, so we need the sector location types. Right, so these are the things that are currently in the game. So all of these things need to go on that menu, which means I need to delete a bunch of stuff here. Star singular. Do we want nebula? I suppose we will have nebula because they do actually exist on the scanners, so why not? Right, so that list should now be consistent with the actual enum, which means we need to move thing that took me ages to type. needed. So after doing that, we then of course need to do this, because that is a change worthy of regenerating the list. Now, assuming I didn't screw anything up, which is never a guarantee, that should be a working filter. Pantalonians, yes. So when you're in first person, you don't have a head or visible hair because it gets in the way of the camera, but it's set to shadow hidden. But there's a bug with that, and sometimes if you select like bold, it still has a hidden hair layer, but of course because it's set to shadow hidden, it's still casting a shadow. So that variable needs to be defaulted to show red. Well, it's only bloody working first time. How about that? Does it work for procedural systems? Let's just double check. Favorite location. Yes, it does. Great, okay. So that works. So what we fixed? So the target list is now counting correctly. We're no longer getting duplicates. The filter works. The manual location works. These buttons and things don't work, so those need doing. And the auto refresh needs doing. And obviously this needs significantly betterizing because it's a bit ugly. You could do with some nicer boxes around it. You could do with also, showing a distance on there if it doesn't right now. Yes, so that would be good. And of course the actual data output needs improving as well. So it's definitely picking up the data for both planets and stars, so that's a good start. Okay. You raise a good point there, Commander Delta. Because yes, if you're watching the TV, you've got that big glowy light on there. It's actually quite annoying. So, this table was never meant to be the final table. It turns out that it's actually quite cool, so we'll keep it. But it needs a bit of a detail pass, and I might go ahead and get rid of the light strip because it is a bit bright and garish. I would like to embed some controls into the table for the screen. So the light strip will be in the way for that anyway. So it'd be nice to have like a UI sort of nicely moulded into the table here, where you can control that remotely. In addition to this. So one of the ideas I had was, rather than having just a wide flat tabletop, to have like a little raised section in the middle, like a little shelf almost in the middle, and I could put the light strip around that instead. Yeah, a Zoom meeting would be cool with this, or an actual real-world Zoom meeting. So yeah, when I come to actually do a polish on this room, I'll throw out some desk designs, and if I share them on Discord, then everyone can discuss. Okay, well, with that filter working, I think I will go ahead and call it a night there, because I've been streaming for 3 hours. And, isn't it funny how we always manage to get the thing working that we've been trying to get working, like bang on 3 hours? It's happened consistently like that, like a dozen times now. Weird but true. Default that, so I don't have to keep looking at that horrendous colour. Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Yes, yeah, I think yeah, we made some decent progress there. So, as I said, so on this panel, this needs doing properly. This needs cleaning up and just making it better generally. The auto refresh needs to be done. The auto refresh is probably going to be a 10-minute job, so that shouldn't be much of a biggie. This all needs hooking up properly. That's going to be like an hour of flapping about. That's why I haven't done it yet, because this is the kind of UI work which is just monotonous and boring. So I just have to kind of grit my teeth, have a cup of tea, and get on with that one. And then that will be this panel, feature complete, which would be nice. The medium range, it's going to have similar focal point box, maybe even the same focal point box on here. Only having it so that you can focus on the planets and zoom in and out of a planet rather than the ship. And maybe something similar like this, so you can focus on the center of the star system. That would be quite useful. So where you zoom in and out currently, obviously you're zooming in and out of where the ship is. It would be nice if you could focus on the center of the star system and zoom in and out from there instead. In addition to stepping through the various planets, maybe. So if we had maybe a drop down and you can select which planet you want to focus on, and it focuses the map on that specific location. That might be a lot more usability in the map if we do it that way. So yeah, there's a few nice features we can do to make that nice to use. And again, it needs all the data output over here. And then finally, we need to hook this up to the procedural planets, because it's just displaying Sol planets currently. And then we need to deal with the data aspect of that. And again, we need the display focus here, so it's either focused on the planet or the ship. And it should be interesting actually, because if we have the ship as a focus option, then obviously the ship's going to be in the middle of the display. What's that little dot? Why is that there? So where that little dot is where the ship would be. And then you'll just see like the giant arc of a planet next to it as you fly around, which would be quite cool. And because it's obviously on the holo display, it will cut off smoothly. And one thing I do want to do is to do a cutaway diagram of the planet as well. So I'll do just a quick 3D mesh that has like a wedge cut out, so you can see the molten core in the middle, that sort of thing. Because science. Okay, so I'll leave it there. I will go ahead and put a build together now, and then I'll get that out probably sometime within the next hour, so keep an eye open for that. And again, if anyone has a MIDI keyboard, if you could please test it on the dev build and let me know whether it works, that would be appreciated. It'd be nice if we could tick that off as a working feature. Will the targeted planet rotate in the holo display? No, it won't, because we want to be able to walk around it without the thing you're looking at kind of scrolling out of your view. Maybe we'll have a toggle. We'll have a look at that once it's a bit further along. Right, okay, I need to go stretch and put the kettle on, so I shall catch you guys on the next stream, which will be, of course, on Sunday. So I shall see you then. Bye for now.